So I was thinking to myself, the time we find ourselves in, what does it remind me of? What does it bring to mind? And interestingly, it brought to mind pregnancy. Yeah, I'm no professional on it. I've only been a bystander to it. Pregnancy adjacent. And you know that stage in the last trimester or the last month, and you're feeling bloated and can't sleep, can't move, etc. And then you think it just, the baby just, I want the baby out. I want the baby, and then the baby comes, please God, all healthy. And it's a whole nother journey that begins. I feel like now we're at that stage where we're so done with COVID. The third wave is starting to tip. Many of the community are vaccinated or are getting vaccinated. So like we see the mountain, we see the end. But once and that moment is also the most plotting, you're the most depleted. You've just been fighting this for 9 months. But we're about to give birth to something new. Now, the birth to something new doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It's going to have its own challenges. And I would like to believe we're not going to have to go into a similar lockdown again, but who knows? But, I don't believe we're ever going to have what we had. It's going to be different. Now that we're vaccinated, now that so many people have had COVID and built immunity, at least for the next while, listen, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a prophet. I don't see things playing out the way they have, but it will be different. And I don't know what's going to be. I just don't think it's going to be what was. And it's like this time, it's like, you're so done. But the hope is right there. Like, people are getting vaccinated. If only just get your second vaccine. Thank God for me, I've had my vaccination and I could breathe. Finally kicked in, feeling like a bit, safe and secure. Obviously, Hashem runs this world and God knows what's going to happen, but it's like we're almost there. Hoping that we're going to walk into something exceptional. Well, Israel is showing us, unfortunately, with all the vaccines, they're having over 1,000 people getting sick every day. So again, we're walking into something different. I'm not here to throw pessimism or optimism, just saying we're about to go to something different. And the question is, how do we embrace the stage we're at? It's often like we think the one thing's going to end. That one challenge is going to go out of my life and things are going to sort itself out. That one niggle. I remember my sister one time told me, she said that there was this rabbi who blessed his community that they should have a lot of tsaros. And people got very offended. What do you mean I should have a lot of tsaros? Why? So he says, because if you have a lot of tsaros, usually it means you don't have any. It's just small stuff. When you have one sorrow, when you have one real thing, then it consumes everything. If heaven forbid you suffer a loss or sickness or huge financial strain, that becomes the overarching challenge. When you have lots of tzarot, you have this thing and that thing and that. It usually means that there's nothing major that's consuming you, and it's just life. But the point is, we often think, if only I cross the Rubicon, if only I cross over that step, if only I just get the vaccine and I just make it to the other side, then what? What will I find? Will I find peace? Will I find serenity? What will I find? What will I find now that we're vaccinated and now that we could come out? What do we find at the other side? Cross the ocean, cross the Atlantic, come to the new world. What are we going to find? Same selves, with hopefully a big shadow off us And the COVID has been a huge, huge shadow, a huge weight. But until Mashiach comes, we still find ourselves. And what happens? What happens? What awareness do we come to? You know, in this week's Parsha, it's not a Parsha shir, but just allow me to bring it a point. We're currently in the Parshiyot of the weeks. We're in the fifth book. We're in the final book of the Torah. And the fifth book is mostly written in first person. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, after 40 years of leading the Jewish people in the desert, he's reflecting on their journey together. He's reflecting on the Jewish journey. He's giving some insights. And he's kind of saying goodbye because he's about to pass away. And Joshua, his student, his successor, is going to take them into the Holy Land, into Israel. He's kind of wrapping it up. You know, I'm being a bit premature because COVID's not wrapped up. We're still in high numbers, but like, I don't know, I feel like we could see the end. You know, having looked at other countries, like we're entering, hopefully from COVID-wise, a better time. And I'll be honest, even from what happened last week in South Africa with the chaos. Obviously, during the time we were all overwhelmed and it totally broke us. But what's incredible is the positivity that has come out since and the feeling that something new is giving birth. Like, I don't know, the feeling I have this week, and I can only talk about where I'm at. You know, if you've been listening to my shiurim, you'll know that I only talk where I'm at. I can't fake it. That's why I struggle to pre-record stuff or to script my shiurim too much, because it has to come from where I'm feeling. What I'm feeling now is something new is about to get born. I just don't know what it is. It might be a beautiful child. It might be a monster. I don't know, but something, we're moving into something. Please God, it's Mashiach, but we're moving into something. But it's not going to really happen to us. It's not going to be something born to us. What are we giving birth to? What are we bringing into the world? What energy are we bringing out into the world? What has changed within us? Have we, you know, it's come time as we're standing with Moshe at the end of a 40-year journey. We're not there yet, but we're almost there. It's time to start making sense of this COVID and moving to the next stage and growing and being new, best versions of ourselves. You know, recently, as I sent a message, it was my birthday. And when birthdays come, we spend a lot of time reflecting. That's what a birthday is. It's time to reflect. And one of the things I was reflecting on is you know, where am I in the life I've chosen to live? Am I living with joy? Am I living with clarity? Am I living with self-pity, or am I living with excitement? And some of the answers I've had for myself were harsh. They weren't nice to face. I mean, the last few weeks definitely brought out a lot of self-pity to many of us. Our country's going to the dogs, and the COVID, and the death, and the this, and the all true stuff. A deep sense of despondency and heaviness. And I was sitting with a group of friends on my birthday, and I was just sharing my thoughts. It was on Zoom. I said, like, I'm actually done. I'm done with this negativity. I can't hold it anymore. It's becoming too heavy. It's choking. It's like you have this bone in your throat and you can't breathe. That's what I feel so many of us have been living with, this like bone in our throat of despondency and self-pity and kvetching, and the government and the COVID and the vaccines and the mess and the people and the community. Just like, can't breathe like this. can't breathe from this energy anymore. And that's why recently I started this new shiur, this new cycle of talking about faith and trust in Hashem. We've already done 3 shiurim. Simply because it came to a stage where I was like, I don't recognize myself anymore. I can't live choking on my own misery. And far be it from me to say, but I'm going to say something a bit controversial. After living 11 years in South Africa, I could consider myself semi-South African. I'm not, I haven't fully, haven't made it, and I still don't talk a word of Afrikaans or Zulu, and I really, there's certain things I'll never get, but I'm pretty there. And I've bought into a lot of the gifts of South Africa, and I've also bought into the single biggest curse of South Africa. What's the curse of South Africa? Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Living with this headspace that the country's about to go to the dogs. That in just one moment, all the expats are going to be proven true. This feeling that the world is about to come to an end, which is a unique South African. I've never seen it anywhere else. I can't say it doesn't exist anywhere else. It's a unique South African mindset waiting for the world to come to an end. It's just a question of when. It didn't happen in the 60s, it will happen in the 70s. It didn't happen in the 70s, it will happen in the 80s. It didn't happen in the 80s, it happened in the 90s, then 2000s, 2010, now in the 2020s. It's gonna happen. One day, the prophets of doom are gonna be proven that this country was destined for failure. It's going to happen, my friends. That mindset, I found myself last week a little buying into it. And I was like, no. It's unhealthy. I'm allergic to this stuff. And not me, we're all allergic to this stuff. Negative thinking, we should see as an allergy. It's dangerous for you. You put it into your brain and you have a bad reaction. Just like if you're lactose intolerant or gluten intolerant or God knows peanut intolerant, what happens is you then, you have a bad reaction. Hopefully you're not too intolerant. We should become intolerant of self-pity and doomsday saying. Because what it does to us, it literally causes a reaction, a despondency, a heaviness, a self-pity, an anger. Can't live like that. And that's why, hopefully, I can't promise. I'm a human being and my emotions are my emotions. But going forward, I really hope that whatever message I could put out into the community, if it wasn't positive enough, I want to make it more positive. Not naive, not silly. Nobody's in denial. I read the news every day. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. I'm aware of what's going on. But enough, guys. Enough with the heaviness. Enough with the misery. I believe in Hashem, and I believe in the inherent goodness of the people of this country. When BLM happened in New York and all those riots that, by the way, didn't last 4 days, they lasted weeks. I didn't see any pictures of people coming and cleaning up the glass. President Trump wasn't cleaning glass. Look at this country. Look how beautiful it is. Yes, there's elements in it. Nobody's in denial, but the people of this country are the best quality of people in the world. But are we allowing ourselves to see it, or have we allowed COVID to form our minds to see everything from a place of negativity? We just came out of the 3 weeks, the 3 weeks of mourning. We've shed that off us. Till the day after Tisha B'Av, we still keep certain customs. You don't cut your hair. But as of yesterday, midday, it's done. The grief, the mourning, the misery, it's done. I don't want to live like that. No one's in denial of all the loss we've suffered this last few months and last year. But I can't. We can't live like this. And this is something our parents and grandparents knew. Not even talking about the Holocaust survivors. I'm talking about the people who suffered just life. I mean, 100 years ago, every second baby people had, or 200 years ago, was died in infancy. Life was tough and miserable and hectic. And if you sat there grooving and getting swept into the quicksand of the misery, you ended up just giving up. You gotta keep on fighting. Life is a mountain, and if you stop climbing, you fall. You can only go up or down. There's no other way. Or it's like a bicycle. Bicycles don't stay static. You're either moving or you fall off. And we have to get back on the bike. And live life with a joy, with a wholehearted living, showing up and living with every part. In school, in preschools across the world, they're asking kids to draw faces, and kids are drawing faces of just eyes. They haven't seen face, right? Like, as if we cover most of our body, and now we have to cover whatever's not covered. And obviously with gloves, or, we're not touching anybody, etc. It's symbolically, we've like hid behind. We've gone into a mask, gone into this universe, no engagement with it. And now we've come back, and maybe we won't be able to shake each other's hand, and maybe we won't be able to hug. But still, we're going to come and we'll say, I cannot live half-baked any longer. I cannot live with self-pity any longer. I cannot live with regrets any longer. Recently I had to do a few burials, and one of the things that always touches me, because when I sit with the family, sometimes I know the person who passed, sometimes I don't. But even if I knew the person, I try to sit with the family and say, tell me who this person was. And one of the greatest things they could say is, this person lived without regrets. But genuinely, not because they were a narcissist and they never took accountability. No, they made mistakes and they took accountability and they dealt with it, and there was no regrets. Life has shown us how flimsy it is, how it hangs on a thread, but it's also shown us to cherish it, to cherish life. And we have to become bigger people for it. Bigger, and I mean bigger, I don't mean, eating more, which unfortunately I'm doing with abundance. I'm saying bigger in character, bigger in grace, bigger in maturity, bigger in self-discipline and self-control and emotion control. Life is too short. I've buried way too many people way too young recently. Life is really short. And lifespan of, the average lifespan has cut in the last 1.5 years because of all this craziness. But even if life is long, it's long with what? With variables? With what? Every temper tantrum we have, every emotional explosion we have, every fight we have with a sibling, every misunderstanding we have with a child, whatever issues we have in our life, they won't go away, but can't we at least approach them with a little more maturity? A little more grace, a little more respect for the other person's journey, even if their journey is so ridiculous and so pathetic. As they say, there's first cousin once removed and there's first cousin want to be removed. You might have this relative that's like, it makes every bad decision, but like, show up with grace. Show up with, there's space for you in my world. I've grown, and I want to create space for you and your nonsense in my world, and I hope that you could create space for me and my nonsense in your world. Because believe me, we're all full of nonsense. And I want to share one thought on that specific idea because it's something that I've confronted a lot, fighting issues. There's a great idea that Tanya teaches, a great idea of Jewish mysticism that goes the following. When you struggle to love somebody and you only feel resentment and animosity, replace your love with compassion. Replace your love with compassion. You know what the difference between love and compassion is? Love is deserved. It's very hard to give undeserved love. But compassion, the more the person irritates you, the more they're a nebuch, the more compassionate you can become. And the compassion can then lead to love. Because once you realize, I get it. You're lo yitzlach, you're shlamazel, I get it. Like life hasn't been good to you. I can't hold it against you for not having any seichel, for being so tactless or so mean-spirited or so defensive. I actually have compassion for you. I don't look down at you. I'm not patronizing. I'm not, sympathetic. I have compassion. I get it. Life has given you a hard ride. For whatever reason, Hashem gave you different tools than he gave some others, and you haven't had it easy. And you even make my life a misery. But I know that that's not what you wish your life is. I know you wish you could have lived a more functional life. So I have compassion for you. I feel for you. You could do that to your parent who's just obnoxious and broken. You could do it to your child. You could do it to a sibling. It's hard to do it to a spouse because a spouse has to be somewhat reciprocal. The marriage relationship is different, but in some way it could also be yeah, I get it. You're hard to love, and that's why I love you. Think about that. There was a great sage. He quoted a piece of Talmud that the Talmud says, quite a cryptic statement. You're not allowed to have mercy on an idiot. But there's a certain halachic context for it. So this wise sage said, can you imagine how much compassion and mercy you're supposed to have on a person that even the Talmud says not to have mercy on it? In other words, Nebuch the idiot, Nebuch the Meshugana, even the Talmud says you don't have to have Rahmanas on him. How much more Rahmanas are you supposed to have on him? In other words, instead of going and saying, oh, I told you that person's worse than you thought. It's even worse. I told you, proved you. Change that anger into compassion. Nebuch. And this is not just theoretical. Many people have told me they've taken this and it's helped them. Because it just gives you direction. The compassion leads to love. Sometimes love could lead to love because it's a nice, comfortable relationship. So you love and the person loves you back and it's comfortable and it's mutual. And sometimes the road to love is through compassion. When you have that difficult person in your life, when you have that person that gets in the banner, breaks you and hurts you. And I'm not saying let yourself be hurt, protect yourself, but at the same time, don't hate them. They're not worth it. And that's the biggest rahmanas on them. I remember, I know it's a bit of an extreme example, but when Chaya and I were held up, I remember telling the thug with his gun, I remember telling him, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And he was saying, why? I don't need your forgiveness, and a kick in the face. I said, I can't live with resentment on you. You don't deserve my resentment. Didn't say that, but I said, I don't want to resent you. I forgive you, I forgive you. And he's like, shut up. And I'm like, I forgive you. Not because I'm a saint, believe me, I'm not. but because hatred is the most poisonous of feelings. Resentment, anger, self-pity. These things kill us. And if we could come out of COVID a little more forgiving, a little more generous in spirit to other people. We now realize how everyone has a peckle. Every family is dealing with stuff. Like if someone, you know, like I always say, I hope I don't ever lose my mind and start sharing, because the kinds of stuff, I could literally, every family in the community has a story. Every family, every person in the world has a story that most people have no idea about. We all have the skeletons in the closet. So just develop compassion. Some people cope better, some people don't. Some people are born with more EQ and some people with less. Some people have the seichel, some people are born idiots. What do you want from them? As they say in Yiddish, a Kopf kann man nicht draufstellen. You can't put a head on somebody. If they don't have a brain, they don't have a brain. If they don't have seichel, they don't have seichel. But have mercy on them, never. There's too much resentment. And when anti-Semitism and the hatred from the outside is getting stronger, we have to make sure that the love on the inside is stronger. If the anti-Semite hates Jews and I hate Jews, that's quite a bad company I'm in. Yeah, but the anti-Semite doesn't have a reason, and I do. The anti-Semite hates your mother and you hate your mother. What's the difference? Yeah, but the mother didn't abuse him. The mother abused you, fine, but it's the same hatred, it's the same poison. Clean our hearts. Go on a diet of hate. Go on a diet of resentment. Go on a diet of self-pity. Get rid of it. Whatever COVID does to us and whatever the coming year brings to us, we're already close to 6 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. We're getting there. It's customary soon in a few days to actually start wishing people a good year. That's how close we are. Just let it go. Forgive, love, just compassion. There's so much beauty in this world which is being neglected or missed simply because we're allowing the struggles of life to paint our reality. So my final request to each and every one of us and to myself is, let's not only vaccinate ourselves against COVID, let's vaccinate ourselves against pessimism, negativity, resentment, hatred. And there's no vaccine that can be given to you for that. With the only thing you could do is vaccine yourself from within. Shkoyach, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys all coming.